الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباءهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بالثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أأتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغن عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخلوا الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون. ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون. وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون. سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون. وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالأرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم أن لا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أزل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره نكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلق قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for Sayyid Mehdi Reza ibn Ali Reza. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين صراط غير المغضوب عليهم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد. سورة فاتحة سید مہدی رضا ابن علی رضا. اعوذ باللہ من الشیطان الرجیم بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم جابر بن عبداللہ الانصاری عن فاطمة الزہرا علیہ السلام بنت رسول اللہ صلی اللہ علیہ وآلہ قال سمعت فاطمة انہا قالت دخل علی ابی رسول اللہ فی بعض الایام قال السلام علیک یا فاطمة فقلت علیک السلام قال انی اجد فی بدنی ضعفا فقلت له اعیذک باللہ بیابتہ من ضعفه قال یا فاطمة ایتینی بالکساء الیمانی فغطینی به فأتیته بالکساء الیمانی فغطیته به وسرت انظر الیہ واذا وجهه یتللہ کأنہ البدر فی لیلۃ تمامہ وکمالہ اللہم صلی اللہ محمد وآل محمد وما كانت الا ساعة واذا بولد الحسن قد اقبل ما وقال السلام علیک یا امہ فقلت وعليك السلام يا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي وقال يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله فقلت نعم إن جدك تحت الكساء فأقبل الحسن نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أدخل معك تحت الكساء وقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا صاحب حوزي قد أذنت لك فدخل معه تحت الكساء فما كانت إلا ساعة وإذا بولدي الحسين قد أقبل وقال السلام عليك يا أمه فقلت وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا قرة عيني وثمرة فؤادي وقال لي يا أمه إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة جدي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وقلت نعم إن جدك وأخاك تحت الكساء ودنا الحسين نحو الكساء وقال السلام عليك يا جداه السلام عليك يا من اختاره الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكما تحت الكساء وقال وعليك السلام يا ولدي ويا شافع أمتي قد أذنت لك فدخل معهما تحت الكساء فأقبل عند ذلك أبو الحسن علي بن أبي طالب وقال السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله فقلت وعليك السلام يا أبا الحسن ويا أمير المؤمنين وقال يا فاطمة إني أشم عندك رائحة طيبة كأنها رائحة أخي وابن أمي رسول الله فقلت نعم ها هو مع ولديك تحت الكساء فأقبل علي نحو الكساء قال السلام عليك يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال له وعليك السلام يا أخي ويا وسيئي وخليفتي وصاحب لوائي قد أذنت لك فدخل علي تحت الكساء ثم أتيت نحو الكساء وقلت السلام عليك يا أبتاه يا رسول الله أتأذن لي أن أكون معكم تحت الكساء قال وعليك السلام يا بنتي ويا بزعتي قد أذنت لك فدخلت تحت الكساء فلما اكتملنا جميعا تحت الكساء أخذنا أبي رسول الله بطرف الكساء وأومي بيده اليمنى إلى السماء وقال اللهم إن هؤلاء أهل بيتي وخاصتي وحامتي لحمهم لحمي ودمهم دمي يؤلمني ما يؤلمهم ويحزنني ما يحزنهم أنا حرب لمن حاربهم وسلم لمن سالمهم وعدو لمن أعداهم ومحب لمن أحبهم إنهم مني وأنا منهم فاجعل صلواتك وبركاتك ورحمتك وغفرانك ورضوانك علي وعليهم واذهب عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل وقال الله عز وجل يا ملائكتي ويا سكان السماوات إني ما خلقت سماء مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهيا ولا خمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا في محبة هؤلاء الخمسة الذين هم تحت الكساء وقال الأمين جبرائيل يا ربي ومن تحت الكساء فقال عز وجل هم أهل بيت النبوة ومعدن الرسالة هم فاطمة وأبوها وبعلها وبنوها اللهم صل على محمد وآله قال جبرائيل يا ربي أتأذن لي أن أهبط إلى الأرض لأكون معهم سادسا فقال الله نعم قد أذنت لك فهبط الأمين جبرائيل وقال السلام عليك يا رسول الله العلي الأعلى يقرئك السلام ويخصك بالتحية والإكرام ويقول لك بعزتي وجلالي إني ما خلقت اسما مبنيا ولا أرضا مدهيا ولا قمرا منيرا ولا شمسا مضيا ولا فلكا يدور ولا بحرا يجري ولا فلكا يسري إلا لأجلكم ومحبتكم وقد أذن لي أن أدخل معكم فهل تأذن لي يا رسول الله؟ قال رسول الله عليه السلام يا أمين بقي الله إنه نعم قد أذنت لك. فدخل جبرائيل معنا تحت الكساء وقال لأبي إن الله قد أوحى إليك يقول إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. وقال علي لأبي يا رسول الله أخبرني ما لجلوسنا هذا تحت الكساء من الفضل عند الله. وقال النبي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني بالرسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض ففيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا إلا ونزلت عليهم الرحمة وخفت بهم الملائكة واستغفرت لهم إلى أن يتفرقوا. وقال علي إذا والله فزنا فعذوا شيعتنا ورب الكعبة. قال النبي ثانيا يا علي والذي بعثني بالحق نبيا واصطفاني برسالة نجيا ما ذكر خبرنا هذا في محفل من محافل أهل الأرض وفيه جمع من شيعتنا ومحبينا وفيه محموم إلا فرج الله همه ولا مغموم إلا وكشف الله غمه ولا طالب حاجة إلا وقضى الله حاجته. قال علي إذن والله فزنا وسعدنا وكذلك شيعتنا فعزوا وسعدوا في الدنيا والآخرة ورب الكعبة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Please recite the Surah Fatiha for Sayyid Mehdi Reza ibn Reza. Bismillah. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين بسم الله.
ایک صلوات دے. Please recite a Surah Fatiha 3 times, Surah Ikhlas for Marhum Sayyid Mehdi Reza ibn Syed Ali Reza. مہدی انکل ایک بزرگ ہستی تھے جو ہمارے درمیان اب نہیں رہے اور ان کی کمی بڑی محسوس کی جائے گی کیونکہ وہ ہماری بیت القائم کی ہر محفل میں چاہے محرم ہو جماعت جمعہ ہو یا رمضان کی افطاریاں ہوں ان کی باتوں سے ہمیشہ ہم لطف اندوز ہوتے رہتے تھے اور بڑے مس کیے جائیں گے. خدا ان کو غریق رحمت کرے اور ان کے خاندان کو صبر جمیل عطا کرے انشاءاللہ. ایک صلوات بھیج دیں نا. بسم اللہ. ایک قطع اور اس کے بعد ایک خط عباس کی شان میں ایک سلام. امتحان عاشقی میں کیف پاتے ہیں حسین. امتحان عاشقی میں کیف پاتے ہیں حسین. انتہائی مشکلوں میں مسکراتے مسکراتے ہیں حسین، انتہائی مشکلوں میں مسکراتے ہیں حسین، اور لا فتح الا علی، لا فتح الا علی، لا سیف الا ذوالفقار، اور پڑھتے جاتے ہیں فرشتے، بڑھتے جاتے ہیں حسین، وہ پڑھتے جاتے ہیں فرشتے، بڑھتے جاتے ہیں حسین، امتحان عاشقی میں۔ صلوات بھیجیں۔ ایک اور صلوات بھیجیں۔ آغا سروش صاحب کے کلام سے کچھ چند شعر حضرت باز کی شان میں۔ میں ہوں در عباس ہے اور میری جبیں ہے، میں ہوں در عباس ہے اور میری جبیں ہے، اور سب کہنے کی باتیں ہیں، اور سب کہنے کی باتیں ہیں، فلک ہے نہ زمیں ہے، میں ہوں در عباس ہے اور میری جبیں ہے۔ شعر ملائے گا۔ اور زخمی ہے مگر کربو بلا کتنی ہنسی ہے، اور زخمی ہے مگر کربو بلا کتنی ہنسی ہے، اور جنت کہیں دنیا میں اگر ہے تو یہیں ہے، اور جنت کہیں دنیا میں اگر ہے تو یہیں ہے، اور کیوں مدحت عباس میں لکنت ہے زباں کو، اور کیوں مدحت عباس میں لکنت ہے زباں کو، اور دیکھو کہیں محفل میں سکینہ تو نہیں ہے، اور دیکھو تو کہیں محفل میں سکینہ تو نہیں ہے، اور اتنا ہی یقین ہے تیری امداد کا مجھ کو، اور اتنا ہی یقین ہے تیری امداد کا مجھ کو، اور جتنا مجھے زہرا کی دعاؤں کا یقین ہے اور جتنا مجھے زہرا کی دعاؤں کا یقین ہے، اور ہمراہ امام آئیں گے عباس بھی ایک دن، ہمراہ امام آئیں گے عباس بھی ایک دن، اس بات کا ہر ٹوٹے ہوئے دل کو یقین ہے، اور اس بات کا ہر ٹوٹے ہوئے دل کو یقین ہے، اور کس نے کہا لوٹ آیا ہوں میں کرب و بلا سے، اور کس نے کہا لوٹ آیا ہوں میں کرب و بلا سے، میں بھی ہوں وہیں اور میرا دل بھی وہیں ہے، میں بھی ہوں وہیں اور میرا دل بھی وہیں ہے، اور ہر ملک میں لہراتا ہے غازی تیرا پرچم، وہ ہر ملک میں لہراتا ہے غازی تیرا پرچم، وہ لگتا ہے کہ ہر ملک تیرے زیر نگیں ہے، وہ لگتا ہے ہر ملک تیرے زیر نگیں ہے، اب عباس تیرے دم سے ہے سرور کی حکومت، او عباس تیرے دم سے ہے سرور کی حکومت، تو فخر سلیمان کی انگوٹھی کا نگیں ہے، اور تو فخر سلیمان کی انگوٹھی کا نگیں ہے، اور عاشور کے ہنگام میں اصغر کا تبسم، عاشور کے ہنگام میں اصغر کا تبسم، اور فرزند پیمبر کے لیے فتح مبین ہے، اور فرزند پیمبر کے لیے فتح مبین ہے، اور کب مشق چھدی یاد ہے عباس کو لیکن، او کب مشق چھدی یاد ہے عباس کو لیکن، کب کٹ گئے شانے یہ انہیں یاد نہیں ہے، او کب کٹ گئے شانے یہ انہیں یاد نہیں ہے، میں ہوں در عباس ہے اور میری جبیں ہے، اور سب کہنے کی باتیں ہیں، فلک ہے نہ زمیں ہے، میں ہوں در عباس ہے اور میری جبیں ہے. صلوات بھیجیں. میرا ہے مگر اس میں نہیں ٹھیک ہے، آنکھوں پہ لگی ہے. بار دیگر صلوات. آہ سوزاں لب تک آئی، اشک بانے کو ہے، جوش میں گل ہے دھواں اٹھا، گلا آنے کو ہے، سامنے عادل کے عصیاں سے حجاب آنے کو ہے، دوڑے رحمت کے اب فرتے حساب، دوڑے رحمت کے اب فرتے حساب، نظم کر لوں زیارت اے اجل دم لے ابھی، جو میرا مشکل کشا ہے وہ جنا، جو میرا مشکل کشا ہے وہ جنا، اے فرشتو ایک دم تھم جاؤ پھر کرنا سوال، میرا مولا بہر تلخین جواب، میرا مولا بہر تلخین جواب، ماتم شبیر میں اٹھتا ہے رو کر کون کون، دیکھیے کس کس کے حصے میں ثواب، دیکھیے کس کس کے حصے میں ثواب، آنے کو ہے آئے سوزا لب تک فاتحہ. صلوات.
جب نوجواں پسر شہیدی سے جدا ہوا، روشن قمر سے پہرے بری سے جدا ہوا، نور نظر امام مبیں سے جدا ہوا، لخت جگر حسین عزیز سے جدا ہوا، لخت جگر حسین عزیز سے جدا ہوا، دل داغ داغ ہو گیا جان و بطول کا، گھر بے چراغ ہو گیا صبح رسول کا، گھر بے چراغ ہو گیا صبح رسول کا، برچھی سے ٹکڑے ہو گیا لخت جگر کا دل، خود باپ نے چھدا ہوا دیکھا پسر کا دل، ہوتا ہے آپ گینے سے نازک بشر کا دل، پتھر کا دل نہیں ہے یہ دل ہے پدر کا دل، پتھر کا دل نہیں ہے یہ دل ہے پدر کا دل، ایوب بھی اگر ہو تو تم بھر نہ کل پڑے، آنسو تمہیں تو منہ سے کلے جا نکل، آنسو تمہیں تو منہ سے کلے جا نکل پڑے، پیری میں آفت غم اولاد علماء، وہ اشک سوز اور وہ فریاد علماء، زخم و دو اضطراب خاطرے ناشاد علماء، وہ اشک سوز اور وہ فریاد علماء، وہ اشک سوز اور وہ فریاد علماء، بیٹا نہ ہو تو باپ زیس کا پھر کیا مزہ رہا، جب گھر اجڑ گیا تو زمانے میں کیا رہا، جب گھر اجڑ گیا تو زمانے میں کیا رہا، بچھڑا وہ لال جس کا گوارا نہ تھا فراق، فرماتے تھے کہ لوٹ لیا تو نے عراق، اے موت جلد آ کے بس اب زندگی ہے شاہ، خنجر کی آرزو ہے شہادت کا اشتیاق، خنجر کی آرزو ہے شہادت کا اشتیاق، برباد اس طرح کوئی آباد گھر نہ ہو، کیا زندگی کا لطف جب اپنا پسر نہ ہو، کیا زندگی کا لطف جب اپنا پسر نہ ہو، پیارے نہ تھے حسین علیہ السلام کے، لائی حرم سرا میں بہن ہاتھ تھام کے، تھرا رہے تھے پاؤں شیطش ناکام کے، سردوش پڑتا زینب عالی مقام کے، سردوش پڑتا زینب عالی مقام کے، فرماتے تھے بہن علی اکبر گزر گئے، ہم ایسے سخت جانتے کہ اب تک نہ مر گئے، ہم ایسے سخت جانتے اب تک نہ مر گئے، پرسات تمہیں شہید کا دینے کو آئے ہیں، کس کس کے داغ آج جگر پر اٹھائے ہیں، پیٹے خاک اڑائے ہیں، آنسو بہائے ہیں، یہ ہم تمہارے لال کے خون میں نہائے ہیں، یہ ہم تمہارے لال کے خون میں نہائے ہیں، سر تھا حسین بے کسو تنہا کی گود میں، بیٹے کی جان نکلی ہے بابا کی گود، بیٹے کی جان نکلی ہے بابا کی گود میں، یا مصطفیٰ بلا میں پھنسا ہے تمہارا لال، یا شیر ذوالجلال دکھاؤ انہیں جلال یا فاطمہ لٹتی ہوں بکھراؤ سر کے بال یا رب الٹ دے آج یہ سب عرصہ خطا یا رب الٹ دے آج یہ سب پھر کیا کسی سے کام ہے سب سے جدا رہوں بھائی کو اپنے لے کے میں جنگل میں جا بڑھوں بھائی کو اپنے لے کے میں فرمایا شین صبر بہن چاہیے تمہیں خالق کی یاد سروے علن چاہیے تمہیں لب پر رضا رضا کا سخن چاہیے تمہیں جو ماں کا تھا چلن وہ چلن چاہیے تمہیں جو ماں کا تھا چلن وہ چلن چاہیے تمہیں اب آخری بہن یہ سواری ہماری ہے بادن بزرگواروں کے باری ہماری ہے بادن بزرگواروں کے باری ہماری ہے دیکھا یہ کہہ کے بالی سکینہ کو یاد سے لپٹی وہ دوڑ کر شے گردوں اساس سے طاقت نہ تھی کلام کی ہر چند پیاس سے بولی وہ تشنہ کام شے حق شناس سے بولی وہ تشنہ کام شے حق شناس سے کیا اس بلا کے بن سے تہیا سفر کا ہے صدقے گئی بتاؤ ارادہ کدھر کا ہے صدقے گئی بتاؤ ارادہ کدھر کا ہے فرمایا شہنہا سفر ناگزیر ہے گاؤ گلے لگو کہ یہ صحبت اخیر ہے اب آرزو قربے خدائے خدیر ہے تنہا ہے ہم سپاہ مخالف کثیر تنہا ہے ہم سپاہ مخالف کثیر ہے طے ہو یہ مرحلہ جو اعانت خدا کرے جس کا نہ کوئی دوست ہو بھی وہ کیا کرے جس کا نہ کوئی دوست ہو بھی وہ کیا کرے ننھے سے ہاتھ جوڑ کے بولی وہ تشنگاں بتلائیے مجھے کہ یتیمی ہے کس کا نام آنکھوں سے خون بہا کے یہ کہنے لگے امام کھل جائے گا یہ درد و علام تم پتا بشا کھل جائے گا یہ درد و علام تم پتا بشا بی بی نہ پوچھو کچھ یہ مصیبت عظیم ہے مر جائے جس کا باپ و بچہ یتیم ہے مر جائے جس کا باپ و بچہ یتیم ہے
I would like to request Abbas Reza, the eldest son of the Marhum, to please come and say a few words.
Assalamu alaikum. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. From God we came, and verily to Him we shall return. Just want to take a few minutes of your time, speak a little bit about my father. Most of you know him pretty well. He lived in this community for over 32 years. He lived a long and eventful life, starting in India, obviously, where he was born, 1931. And he was one of the first
of his generation to come to the United States. 1954, shortly after getting married, he came here, studied at the University of Illinois in Champaign, studied architecture. Stayed there. After he studied, he decided to come back for a little while. We lived in Pakistan for a while, and then England, where we established ourselves for about 10, or he was there a lot longer than we were. He went there first, followed by myself, my mother, and my youngest brother. My other brother came a little bit later on. After living there, working, decided to come back to the States, came here, and we lived in a couple of different places, finally settling here in New Jersey in the late 80s. Although we had been coming here before, when we lived in Connecticut, we used to come down to New Jersey all the time. Most of you knew him as a man of few words, except if you get him going on his life story and the Israeli-Egyptian war. Then you'd never hear the end of why Gamal Abdel Nasser made such mistakes. And whatever story he was telling you, it would eventually come back to Gamal Abdel Nasser. I don't mean to make light of it, but we're celebrating his life as well as his passing, so some of the good points on it. A few things that most of you know. One of his big attributes was his patience. Unfortunately, I didn't inherit that. I wish I had, but he was very patient with my mother. Huh? It's not too late. Hopefully I will, inshallah. Wow. He was very patient with everyone. He was very patient with my mother, myself, my brothers. Eager to teach not only his family, immediate family, but his extended family, as he used to get numerous calls from Asad Mamoun, Jawed Mamoun, asking him help on how to buy a car. Not only because of his technical knowledge of the car, but his bargaining power. If he's trying to sell you something, he will sell it for twice the price of whatever it cost, and you'll feel happy about it and go home. If he was trying to buy something, you'd get sick and tired of his bargain and say, just take it for free. But that's the way he was. That's the way he was. Later on, near the end of his life, obviously, his memory started going, and this disease of Alzheimer's and dementia is just a bad disease. It takes away your memory. It takes away a lot of things that he may know about you. He won't recognize you. He may remember. Long-term memory is good, but short-term memory is not. And it was difficult. It's difficult for those around him to live that way and see him going in that direction. But that's what Allah had willed, and that's what was happening. But he was still very patient. He was still very patient all the way to the end. So, in a way, he's free of that pain, free of that. And the other thing is he missed his mother a lot. He would always ask where his mother was. And now finally he's at rest with his mother, father, 2 sisters, and his elder brother. I just want you to remember him the way he was. Please recite Surah Al-Fatiha for him, Sayyid Mehdi Reza, son of Sayyid Ali Reza.
I must say that Abbas really took care of him in his final days. in these last few months when he was losing his memory. He had no idea who was here. He didn't recognize anyone. There were times when he did not even recognize the bus, but he would regularly come to the house, trim his beard, cut his hair, do a nail cutting, give him a shower, and bathe him and whatnot. So mashallah, he had a successful life, and then he left behind a son like this, like a bus, who did his best to make his life comfortable. Let's all please recite once again Surah Fatiha, and I'll welcome Mara to Mimbar. Salawat.
Good, yeah. رحم الله من قرأ سورة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Please recite another Surah Fatiha for Marhum Sayyid Mehdi Reza ibn Sayyid Ali Reza. Surah Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم ولا الضالين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الواصفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حتى إذا جاء أحدهم الموت قال رب ارجعوني لعلي أعمل صالحا فيما تركت كلا إنها كلمة هو قائلها ومن ورائهم برزخ لا يؤمنون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات بجماعة محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Condolences to the bereaved family for the loss of a fatherly figure, to the entire community and especially to the children, a loving father who, by hearing a few words from the son, of course, while we feel sad of the departure of an individual who had such an impact on our lives, but I think he made a good bargain as far as his life, and with the long, healthy life that he spent. And usually when we have these superstitions, कि अगर हम ये बात करेंगे तो इससे खुदा न खास्ता you're jinxing something else, not meaning or saying anything from that aspect. But speaking of all the people that I have seen in this community especially, and I have been part of it for a long, long time now and have had the opportunity to speak to a few Ramadan and a few Muharram Ashras, amongst the elderly and the age group that he belonged in, I'd seen him to be the most independent of all, one who, mashallah, would walk straight without the need of any cane or anything to support him or anyone holding his hand to the seat and the chair that he would sit on. And amongst all the others that were of his age or are still, mashallah, alive, I found him to be, mashallah, taking care of himself and very independent from that aspect. Of course, this Majlis al-Aza is for his Isal al-Sawa, but I could relate, as I just recently also suffered a loss of a father. As you all knew, Mawlana Sayyid Tilmiz Hassan Rizvi, been a part of this community for a long, long time. Even he, towards the end of his life, while he had complete memory of everything, and that wasn't the main concern, but from the other physical abilities, or inabilities rather, I'd say, that he started losing, where he would need assistance, for example, going to the restroom or taking a shower, or remember trimming his beard in the last few months of his life where he could not go outside, for example. So I can relate to an extent as to what you are going through. And indeed, this loss is irreplaceable, irreparable. And the sooner we get used to it, it's easier for our pains to go away. And this is why we have this sort of majalis, Isal Sawab Majlis, for Soyum, for Jihlum, for Barsi, and of course all the other things that as family members usually do, which are customary in our Islamic culture to carry out, taking care of the wajibat, for example, if there were any missed or qadha, prayers or fasts or hajj or anything of that sort that marhum may have left a wasiyat for, or if you knew of that he might have had, this is something by which you can definitely make his soul rest in peace. You hear this, may Allah rest his soul in peace. You hear this all the time whenever you speak to your family members or you speak to your friends. May he rest in peace. Well, the rest in peace concept is when they are completely comfortable and there's nothing hanging on their back and there's nothing still which they want to be accomplished and they want it to be accomplished has not been done. So I think that's where the family needs to take care of those things if there was anything from that aspect. So I chose this ayat for that particular reason. Surah Mu'minun, chapter 23 of the Quran, ayat number 99 and 100. Hatta idha jaa ahaduhumul maut qala rabbi irji'uni la'alli amalu salihan fima taraktuh kalla innaha kalimatun huwa qailuha wa min wara'ihim barzakhun ila yawmi yub'athun. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, hatta idha jaa, until when to one of them approaches death. Hatta idha jaa ahaduhumul maut. When maut approaches one of them, of course, it's referring to one of them as us, human being. Whenever death comes upon us as human beings. And this is the tendency and the nature of insan which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. What would he say? La'alli amalu rabbirji'uni la'alli amalu salihan fima taraktu. Oh my Lord, let me live. Oh my Lord, send me back. Oh my Lord, I want to live longer. La'alli amalu salihan. So that I may do some righteous deeds. Fima taraktu. As far as what I have left behind or I was not able to accomplish in my lifetime. This is a common thing which you hear usually even the most influential of the people in the world, that at the last moment of their life, they said, if there's anything that I can do to live longer. That love for insan to not leave this world and to have a longer life. Now, different people may request this for different reasons, but mu'min would request this to add on to his good deeds. That, oh my Lord, let me live a little bit longer so that I can do more righteousness. Add on to what I have already accomplished or accumulated. Allah says, إِنَّهَا كَلِمَةٌ هُوَ قَائِلُهَا. He says, Kalla. This is not going to happen. Nay, إِنَّهَا كَلِمَةٌ. This is merely the words coming out of his tongue. هُوَ قَائِلُهَا, that he believes can happen, but it's not true. This will never happen, and you and I know this. This request of ours that goes through our mind when the time has been written, that I wish I had more time. I wish I had lived longer. There's a little bit of echo. If you can turn the echo off, it'd be great. Thank you. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And again, I'll give example from my father's lifetime as well. That one of his wishes was that if he could live a little bit longer to finish some of the work that he was doing. That I have these things that I want to accomplish. I'm working on this book. I'm working on that book. I just want enough time so that I can finish this work, then I'll leave peacefully. I'm sure everyone has similar things that they want to be able to accomplish before they can leave peacefully. Now, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّهَا كَلِمَةٌ هُوَ قَائِلُهَا. This is merely his words. This person who's thinking this way, and this is not going to come true. وَمِن وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. And beyond death, until the day of judgment, there's barzakh. There's purgatory, إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, until they will be raised back again. Now, what I wanted to talk about under this ayah is that this is the dua what we make at the life when it's coming to an end. But a lot of time within our life, we are making constantly excuses for not doing something good. I wish I had that, I would have done that. For example, if Allah had given me more children, or if Allah had given me children, for example, I would have sent one of my children to study ilm deen. If Allah had given me, for example, more wealth, I would have created or built this or built that or made this or made that. I would have constructed places of worship where Allah will be worshipped. I would have made, for example, institution where people will learn and study and so on and so forth. If I had that, I would have done this. A lot of time we make this. And when you do have it, what is the dua? I wish I had more. You already have it. When Allah has, mashallah, bestowed you with children, when mashallah Allah has bestowed you with wealth, then the dua increases, it never ends. I wish I had more, so I would have done, for example, this and that. Because as more is given, your own needs start to expand as well. And right away, insan's ability to do something for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts decreasing. And that's why we understand this phenomena, that this is a dua that you continuously make, which will never come true. Not at the time of your death, not even when you are alive. And if Allah makes this come true during your lifetime, it is only just to merely test you. So here, it is better for us to not think that way. कि काश मेरे पास ये सब होता तो मैं ये सब कर लेता. I wish I had all this so I would have been able to accomplish that. No, be content with what little Allah has given to you. And then use that to go ahead and do good as much as you can. Right? Whatever little that you have, that contentment should be there. And from within that, if you're able to utilize for yourself and you're able to do, charity work or whatever work that it is that you want to do for the khidmat-e-khalq, service to mankind. I think that's where we are sometimes lacking. Because this dua will not come true. Some people say, well, if I wish I had lived closer to the masjid, I would have been there every day. I wish I was, this or that. All these du'as that come with wish. desires when the intent is not there. Sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam said, Ma da'ufa badanun amma qawiyat alayhi niyya. The body does not become weak as long as the niyat is strong. Look at the words of sixth Imam. Body does not dictate as long as the niyat is strong. If the determination is strong, and you find this in many of the elderly, they have more of a strong belief and determination to do something and accomplish something which youngsters may not be able to do so. Right? For example, ibadat. The elderly are more inclined to doing more and more ibadat. I get calls majority of the time from the elderly of the community regarding the mustahab salat which is due, for example, this particular night. Maulana Shaban has started. What are the du'as? What are the amal that we can do? Are there any salat, specific salat? Just perform your wajibat. They have this energy. Why? Their bodies are weak. They're fragile. Bodies might be weak. But Imam said, Ma da'ufa badanun, as long as the niyat is qawi and strong. When the niyyah is qawi and strong, body does not dictate. But the moment the body starts dictating, when sometimes we don't have any choice, body dictates, and sometimes it starts dictating, our niyyat becomes weak and weak. That's why you see, it is difficult to see rarely, and there are examples, mashallah, that the younger they are, the less inclined they are toward the ibadat. They'll be content with the wajibat only. Like, mustahab will worry about that when we are older, for example. As if to say this is only when you are, for example, at the age of retirement. Only then you should go ahead and open up Mafatihul Jinan to see the ibadat that are mentioned for the entire year, right? This person, Sheikh Abbas Qummi, went ahead and documented this entire book, which has amal for every single day of the year. You say, well, are there amal for the month of Shawwal? We call that to be khali ka mahina, jisme kuch bhi nahi hota. There are amal for the month of Shawwal as well, yes. There are amal for the days you don't even think about it, normally. He said, well, someone really has to have a lot of time in their hands to be able to do all that. Or leave it when they retire, for example. When they don't have other commitments to take care of the kids, for example, to work or to earn, none of those things are there, then they will resort to this book, Mafatihul Jinan. No, that's not the case. This individual who wrote this book did not publish it until he said, I performed everything that is written in this book myself before I present it to the world, so that tomorrow nobody says to me, did you do it yourself or you're just telling us to do it? So he performed every single thing that's mentioned in that book. Imam said, your body cannot dictate as long as your niyat is strong. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So, well, if I lived closer to masjid, I would have gone. A lot of time, people who live further away, if the determination is there, they'll be present regardless of how far they live. And sometimes those who are the closest, they will be reluctant to come, even though the distance is not the issue over here. Someone said, and I recited this story at another place, someone said that there is a Maulana, and of course he was part of this institution, this majlis, masjid, and one of his regular attendees stopped coming. So he asked him, what happened? He used to see you all the time. It happens to us as well. We sometimes question, you are very regular, what happened to you? Oh, I moved away. Understandable. I moved to another state. I'm working from, I visit parents here sometimes. So then whenever I come, I'll come. But this person was regular. Maulana said to him, why is it that you're no longer coming? He said, why bother coming? He said, what happened? He said, whenever I come, I found a group of people who are backbiting. There's another group of people who are making these false accusations. There's gossip going on. There's, some people who are just reading Quran, some people just praying. No one has anything to do with anyone else. So there's bad and good going on all at the same time, and really a very unhealthy environment. So I said, well, I decided not to come. Believe it or not, our religion is something that you don't even have to step a foot in Masjid or Imam Barga for your entire life, and you can still practice it. It's not a shart and condition to be present in Masjid, to be able to be a Muslim and a mu'min. Now you can be at the highest level of Iman without having stepped into house of worship. Yeah, but if you couple those things, then it's definitely good for you. So the Maulana said, before we jump to the conclusion and you stop coming, let's go ahead and figure out what happened wrong. I said, sure. So Maulana said, well, next time when you come, let me know. So he came. There were people in the gathering. Maulana gave him a, glass, a cup with hot tea in it. And he said, I want you to hold this and walk around the entire masjid 7 times or 5 times without letting a drop of water or drop of chai, which is hot, onto the carpet. So the task was to grab this cup with tea in it and walk around 7 times. But being careful not to drop any chai onto the carpet. Of course, you don't want that. That's why we don't even allow eating or drinking in the hall. So, well, it was an experiment that this Maulana was asking him to do. So he said, I took the cup, which was filled with chai, it was hot, and I carried it and I carefully walked around the entire masjid. Did it once, did it a second time, then I got the hang of it, did it 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time, and I was able to then accomplish the task and I came to Maulana. Majlis was packed. Maulana told me that, did you drop any? He said, no, I was very careful with it. He said, while you were doing this, did you notice that this group of people over there, they were backbiting? That group of people over there that you associate with lying or gossiping? That group of people which is just reading Quran, that group of people which is praying in that corner? He said, no, I didn't pay attention to any of them because I was so much focused on this cup so that not let any drop of chai on to the carpet. That was the task at hand. He said, when you're able to focus on a cup of tea and not let it drop onto the carpet and phase out of everything else that is happening around you, next time you come to masjid, have that sort of attention focused directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else will phase out of. You'll be able to focus. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. You'll be able to focus and dedicate your entire focus to that reason which you are here for. Everything else that is going on will not bother you at all. The reason everything else is bothering you is because you are not focused for the reason that you're coming to the masjid. The moment that focus could be developed, then everything else will not mean anything to you. I think a lot of time we lose that focus. But of course, this ayat which I recited, which relates to this maut. It says, Hatta idha jaa ahaduhumul maut. And this dua that let me come back. Oh Allah, send me back so that I may. So the maut is firm, no doubt about it. It happens every single day in front of us, and there's no doubt, it's inevitable. But that which these people are making dua is not going to come true. Rabbi rji'uni la'alli amalu salihan. Allah will not bring them back, and look at that they're not even sure that they will do good. La'alli in Arabic means shayad. If I was sent back, then maybe I'll do some good. Even now this person is not sure. You and I get only one opportunity in this world. We know that there's no second chance. Still we don't utilize it properly. Imagine if we were told that you have 2 or 3 or 4 chances. Imagine how we would have dealt with this religion or this life that have been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With one opportunity that we have, that's the only opportunity you're getting to live, and you're not going to be getting a second chance. How badly do we do a good job or treat this life? If there were multiple opportunities, how would we treat this life? So this is where insan realizes that they're engulfed with masa'ib. They're musibats, they're pains that are part of the life. And don't take these pains to be something which is specific to certain people. Because the moment we start associating pains and misfortunes with the worldly events, then we'll have a different understanding of them. but look at it from the aspect that the pains and the difficulties of the life are actually for those who are chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you'll have a different perspective of it. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you are being tested more, does not mean that you are unfortunate. Does not mean that you have done something for which you are being tested. The reason you're being tested is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes you more. That's why we find those who are the most beloved of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were tested. Could there be anyone more beloved than the Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? Name me one person in the history who's more beloved than the Prophet. But is the life of Prophet smooth sailing without any difficulties? No, the path is full of difficulties. You and I, at this age, eventually, everyone has to become an orphan. Rasulullah was born an orphan. Imagine that. Not being raised with someone whom he can call a father. Only when Hazrat Abu Talib filled in the shoes of Hazrat Abdullah, the Rasulullah found someone to be a fatherly figure. But he was born an orphan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did that on purpose, so that Rasulullah, the human aspect of Rasul that has been given to him, been able to realize how to deal with those who are orphans. A lot of time things have to be translated to us, shown to us. The path has to be given and provided and spelled out before we can realize how to do certain things. When Qabil had killed his brother Habil, he did not know what to do. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent one of the messengers in the form of a bird who came and showed Qabil what to do with the dead body of his brother. Only then he was able to go ahead and dig up a hole and make the first grave and bury his brother's body. So a lot of times things have to be translated for us, shown to us. So that's why we have this rich history of Ma'asumeen. When we think about that, when we read that, when we tell the stories, what does that do to us? That gives us that sense of comfort that if I have lost a loved one, they too had lost a loved one. And when they face these calamities, and when they face these painful and misfortunate events, how they dealt with it. And so that I can learn to how to deal with those events as well myself. That's why you find in the kalam of the Holy Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, say, Innal bala'a lil-zalimi adabun, walil-mu'mini imtihanun, walil-anbiya'i darajatun, walil-awliya'i karamatun. He said, bala or musiba for zalim is to go ahead and teach him a lesson. Adab. ताकि उसको तादीब किया जा सके, सिखाया जा सके, to teach him a lesson. And that's why the zalimeen of the world, eventually they face that ultimate end of theirs. So this is there as far as the adab is concerned, ta'deeb is concerned. Not only for them, but also those who are treading the same path of that zulm. They should learn what happened to these zalimeen in the past, so they refrain from doing zulm. Many of the laws of Islam, which unfortunately many of us start questioning living in an environment such as this, Roshan Fikri jo insan ke andar aa jati hai, when we start thinking down how things are done in the part of the world that we live in, and that impacts us, and eventually we start questioning the laws of Islam. Why certain things like this? For example, the most common questions that you get, severe punishment of a lot of these, crimes in Islam, which of course are not carried out in any part of the world, but the punishments are there. Maybe a couple of countries in the world enforce those punishments. Well, it's cruel. Why? So we start questioning, because we lived in a place, in an environment, we were brought up where we started thinking that this is not humane. And because it's inhumane, Islam recommended this. How could this make sense? And right away we start questioning. Or organ donation, that's one of the questions that is raised. Why Islam has such difficulty in letting people donate? Why can't we go ahead and do this openly? While this country, this part of the world where we condemn these people so much for lack of faith or lack of ethics and morality, they're the first ones donating their organs and all that. The difficulty of understanding some of these difficult questions, we go ahead and start making up our own ideas. Why does Islam have such cruel punishment for someone who commits adultery, for example, or other things that have happened? The thing is, similar to how the end of a zalim is a lesson for all of us, the punishment of these crimes is also a lesson for us. When someone commits such an action which is detrimental to, which is going to destroy the society, and if it's not severely dealt with, everyone else will have the, they will start trying it themselves. So well, it's not being dealt with force. Nobody really cares if someone does this, and therefore we can all go ahead and enjoy this. Therefore, this will start spreading. That's why Quran says, وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. In retribution, there's what? There's life for you in retribution. Or those who have a lub, or those who have some sort of intellectual. These severe punishments are there in order for us to go ahead and learn a lesson from, so that does not, duplicate in the society, and the society remains safe from all of these things. Salawat bheji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So for zalim, there's adab. For mu'min, it's imtihan. When mu'min is tested, why is mu'min being tested? Mu'min is being tested because for the test, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to push you to your limits. So unless you're pushed to the limits, you won't be able to realize your real worth, your actual worth. Walil anbiya'i darajatun. You think these anbiya all at the same level? No. Some of them are nabi. Some of them are on top of being nabi, messengers. Some of them on top of being messengers, sahib-e shari'at. They had a book or divine purpose. And then only 5 amongst all of them are what? Ulul azm. And amongst these 5, there's only Khatimul Anbiya, Sayyidul Mursaleen, and Sayyidul Anbiya, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So not all Anbiya are at the same level. Hazrat Adam and Hazrat Khatim are not at the same level. There's a difference between the levels. How do you determine the levels? Walil Anbiya'i darajatun. The more a Nabi faces a difficulty and calamity in their life, the more daraja they're given in their life. Their ranks increase as they are tested more and more by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in their life. That's what the hadith says. إِنَّ الْبَلَاءَ لِلظَّالِمِ أَدَبٌ وَلِلْمُؤْمِنِ امْتِحَانٌ وَلِلْأَنْبِيَاءِ what? Darajatun. That it determines the daraja and the rank of a Nabi. The more they're tested, the higher their rank and their daraja is. So this is where it gives us an opportunity to realize that it's not a bad thing that we are tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes. That He puts us through some of these difficulties in our life. And when we look back into the lives of those who are definitely better than us, those who were ma'soom, who did not commit any sins, we are sinful people, so we deserve some of these things. But those who are sinless, when they were tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it gives us an opportunity to do what? To thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we're not close to anything though those people. Still, have given us so many favors. So you look at the life, and I'm not even going to the tariq of the history which is mentioned in the books of ahadith. Just merely study the ayat of Quran in reference to different anbiya that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has spoken about in Quran. Chapter Nuh talks about the calamities of Hazrat Nuh, the masaib that he faced. Can you imagine living and propagating for 950 years and having only 80 people come on board with you? Only 80 people that believed in Hazrat Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam and his mission. Many were mocking him, ridiculing him, doing istihza. He would go and preach, they would put their fingers in their ears. The least, alhamdulillah, when we speak from the manabir, from the mimbar, people may not like what we're saying. They might phase out, some might sleep, but they won't put their fingers in their ears out of respect. अगर सो गए तो एक दफ़ा ज़ोर से सलवात भेजिए Muhammad. This is what Hazrat Nuh dealt with. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the daraja. That inna arsalna Nuhan fil alameen. Or he said, wa salamun ala Nuhin fil alameen. There's no other Nabi that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins the surah by saying, inna arsalna Nuhan. He didn't say, inna arsalna Ibrahim. Inna arsalna masalan Luta. Inna arsalna, for example, Ayyuba. Inna arsalna Yaquba. No, he said, inna arsalna Nuhan. We sent Hazrat Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam. Other Anbiya, Allah says, wa salamun ala Ibrahim. Wa salamun ala Ismail. Wa salamun ala Idris. But when it comes to Nuh, he said, wa salamun ala Nuh fil alameen. There's a difference between the two. That's what this daraja is talking about. The masa'ib that Hazrat Nuh alayhi salatu wasalam faced took him to that level where he was up there. And when you come down to the level after the wafat of Rasulullah, you look at the lives of Ma'asumeen, and you find that nothing has changed. Even they went through many of these masa'ib in their lives, and how did they cope with it? I think that gives us the biggest incentive to deal with these masa'ib that we're regularly facing. That gives us that patience. Brother was talking about patience, how Marhum Mehdi Reza was so patient. That patience, and I again will relate to my father as well, that the amount of calls that, for example, a person like my dad would receive on a daily basis, with people constantly asking him questions. And I won't label questions, but you know, many of his travels when he was away, people will then call me. Those who would only resort to calling him, if they had no choice, then they'll call me, of course. And it would be only a couple of times that I would receive a same person calling me on regular basis regarding, again, some of these silly things, that I lost my temper. I said, did I not tell you this yesterday? You don't need to think about your shak that you have in your namaz. You're too much doubting in your salat. And there's a chapter about you people meaning people like you, in our books of fiqh, that who doubt so much, which tells you that not to pay any attention to your doubts. So whatever doubt you have had about your salat in the last 3 days that you continuously be asking me, please don't pay any attention to it. Poor lady did not call back. My dad came back, she called him, and then my dad said to her, what did you say to her? I said, I blasted, I lost it. Only after 3 days, I lost my patience. I said, how could you deal with this? He said, sabr Ayyub. It comes with age. Yes, many of these things do come with age. I said, that's difficult. To have that, of course, we have riwayat which mention this, that a person came to our lady, Janab Fatmatul Zahra, salamullah alayha. And this young lady, she asked a few questions. She asked one question, then second question, then third question, and there was a list. She said, well, my mother has sent me with these questions. Sorry, I took so much of your time. One more question, and eventually the questions ended. She said, I'm really sorry that I took all of your time for answering all these questions that my mother had. Janab said, don't say sorry for having asked me all these questions. In fact, I should be thankful that you asked me these questions. Listen to the answer. She said, how's that? It's for every question that I resolve for you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala builds a house for me in Jannah. So all the more questions you've asked, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has dedicated a house for me in Jannah. So you actually gave me a favor by asking me these questions. And many such riwayat do exist in our books of Tariq and Hadith that gives us that incentive. Yeah, don't turn anyone down. Don't shun them away, especially your parents. In fact, you don't even have to look at the riwayat. Ayat of Quran tells you that. وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا وَلَا تَقُل لَّهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا قُل لَّهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا وَاخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ مِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ وَقُل رَّبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. Surah Bani Israel, ayat number 23 and 24. What does it say? You've heard this ayat so many times. Only that point that I'm trying to derive from it. وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. That's when your parents grow old, one of them or both of them. Don't say uff to them. And if it was a smaller word than uff, Allah would have commanded us to do that. وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Don't shun them away. Because you're shunning them away, even if they're nagging, if they're annoying, if they're asking things again and again, repeatedly, that's what happens. I will give you an example of a lady continuously calling for the same thing for the past 3 days. Elderly, our parents, when they get old, they'll continue to ask for the same thing over and over. We forget that we used to do the same thing when we were younger. And we see that in our children. That how many times your 5-year-old, your 6-year-old, your 10-year-old, or maybe not 10, but 5 or 6-year-old, nags and asks for the same thing until he or she gets it. Can I have the gadget? Can I have the gadget? No, I just told you you can't. They'll ask you again after 10 minutes. They'll ask you again after 15 minutes. No, you've had it. You've used it already. Continuously asking this. Because they have all the time in the world. They'll continue asking. So, وَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ. Don't say uff to them. وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا. Don't shun them away. How should you speak to them? قُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. If you dare speak to your parents, if you had the audacity to say anything to your parents, first of all, you shouldn't say anything. But if you had the audacity, قُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. Speak to them only nobly, using noble words. That which shows karamat, that which shows respect. And don't use any words of disrespect. Yes, you might have differences. You might not be in good terms. You might not have any of that. But regardless of whatever the terms you may be, speaking to them, keep the respect intact. Because your one disrespect could result in both physical and spiritual deficiency in you. Could be the matter that a life is taken away. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes away the life. That person who was walking, that child who was walking in front of his father out of disrespect. Sixth Imam stopped him. He said to him that 3 things are as far as the wasiyah. وَلَا تُسَمِّي بِإِسْمِهِ. Don't call your father with his name. وَلَا تَمْشِي أَمَامَهُ. Don't walk in front of him. وَلَا تَجْلِسْ قَبْلَهُ. And don't sit before him. These things should not be done out of disrespect. But yes, of course, you have to walk in front of him to open the door. There's nothing wrong with that. But anything that shows disrespect. Then when they left, Imam said, this child was walking 3 steps ahead of his father. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took away 30 years from his life. So there are consequences to some of the things. La tanharhuma qul lahuma qawlan karima. And then the last ayat, I'll conclude. Wakhfid lahuma janahadh dhul. Spread for them the wings of mercy. To you and I, those who have lost our parents, it's difficult now. So how can we do that now? We don't have them, anyone. So to those who still have your parents alive, you have this opportunity. It says what? وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ. Spread for them the wings of mercy. وَقُلْ رَبِّ رَحْمُهُمَا كَمَا رَبِّيَانِ. And pray that Allah have mercy on them the way they had mercy on me. I gave this example, I think, at another Soyum Majlis over here. Worth repeating. That men and women, humans, don't have wings. Although, figuratively speaking, Urdu में कहते हैं पढ़ लगाएं, पढ़ निकल आए. कोई जब ऊंचा उड़ने लगता है तो उसको कहते हैं इनके पढ़ निकल आए हैं, right? When someone loses their head, they say, well, पढ़ लग गए इनके, पढ़ निकल आए. That means they're flying. So that's kahawat is there in Urdu. I don't know what the English, might be something in English as well. But nonetheless, وَخْفِضْ لَهُمَا جَنَاحَ الذُّلِّ. Humans don't have wings. We don't have feathers. Birds do. Why is it that Allah is giving an example that is associated and appropriate for birds and not for humans? Well, look at the birds. When the birds are flying, they're flapping their wings when they're high on the sky. When a bird comes down to the ground to eat something, to be with his kids, for example, after having hunted anything, or comes with his family, for example, wherever they have a nest, their wings are collected and closed. They're no longer flapping their wings anymore. So when you're up there, you can continue to flap because you need to. But when you come down, you need to go ahead and close them. Allah is saying the same thing to us. You might become a president. You might become marja taqleed. You might become a superstar. You might become, a judge. You might become a top-notch lawyer. You might attain some sort of maqam and fame in the world. You can keep flying when you're over there. But the moment you come to your parents, close these wings. They don't need to be flapped in front of the parents. In fact, if anything, let them spread and have your parents sit on top of it. Spread the wings of mercy so they may step on your wings, if you could translate that. But of course, those of us who have lost our fathers, we can't do that anymore. Oh Allah, tell us, oh Prophet, tell us, what can we do? Prophet says, Sayyidul Abrar man barra ila waliday ba'da fawtihima. He says, Sayyidul Abrar. The master and the leader of those who are righteous is someone who does good to his parents after their death. Because anyone can do it when they're alive. It's easy, it's accessible. But when you do it after they have left, and all the things that I had mentioned in the beginning, how you can make up for some of the things that they have left behind, missed, that would be the best way of honoring them. Of course, the examples that we have of Masumin only gives us this opportunity to bear the pain. If it wasn't for the shahadat of Sayyid al-Shuhada, if it wasn't for the shahadat of Amir al-Mu'mineen, we would not be able to realize how to bid farewell to a father. I'll relate to you the story of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam had that understanding कि वो वक्त आ गया है, that he will not be alive for too long. In fact, that night of 19th of Ramadan, Imam could feel when he's leaving his house, his daughter stops him not to go. Imam does not listen. Even the animals in the house give an indication not to go. Imam still pursues. He arrives in the masjid and he knew what was coming. Imam says his Allahu Akbar. He starts his namaz-e nafila. And when he was in sajda, he was in masjid, he was praying, he was ba'wudu, and Imam was at the peak of his salat, which is sajda. At that moment, the enemy strikes a sword onto the head of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And what does Amir al-Mu'mineen say? Fuztu wa Rabbil Kaaba. By the Lord of this Kaaba, Ali is successful. Imam did not utter these words any other place. Now when he won all those battles, he didn't say that I've been successful. Only after being struck in the mihrab, Ali ibn Abi Talib utters these words. So as he's taken from the masjid by his children, Imam Hassanain, Imam alayhi salatu wassalam is dozing off. His eyes are closed. He's going unconscious. And when he feels that his sons are crying, he stops them. He says, don't cry for me, because if you could only see that who has come for my istiqbal, those who have come to receive me, you won't cry like that either. Marhum was also the same way, that the amal that he had in his life, that he would say to his children that you don't need to weep, you don't need to cry, because the zikr of that I have done all my life. Those individuals have come to receive me at this last moment of mine. Amir al-Mu'mineen, as he was taken to his house by the companions, Imam says, he bids farewell to his companions. He said, this is the last of us. I don't want you to come any closer to my house. My daughters have already received the news, and they would be weeping, and I don't want the voices of my daughters coming to the ears of na-mahram. Imam, you're so worried about the sound and the voice of your daughters, Zainab and Kulthum, reaching the ears of those who are not mahram. Come to Karbala, how Zainab and Kulthum are being treated over there. Ajrukum Allah. But when Imam was brought inside the house, Imam asked to be taken to the place where he used to worship. Bas wo waqt aata hai, Zainab aur Kulthum aati hain, باپ کی حالت دیکھ کے گریا کرتی ہیں. اب امام علی نے نہ روکا, اپنے بیٹوں کو روکا تھا, بیٹیوں کو گریا کرنے سے نہیں روکا. ہاں گریا کرو اور خوب گریا کرو. شاید امام بتانا چاہتے ہیں کہ کچھ عرصے میں اسی کوفے میں تمہیں رلایا جائے گا. اجرکم اللہ. خدا کسی غم میں نہ رلائے سوائے غم آل محمد کے. امام نے سب کو وصیتیں کی. جب ہر ایک کو وصیت کر چکے, بس حضرت عباس کو کوئی وصیت نہ کی. ام البنین آتی ہیں, کہتی ہیں مولا میرے بیٹے سے کیا خطا سرزد ہوئی کہ آپ نے اس کو کوئی وصیت نہ کی. عباس کو بلایا, حسین کو بلایا, عباس کے ہاتھ میں حسین کا ہاتھ رکھا اور کہا اے عباس جان لو تم میرے فرزند ہو اور یہ حسین رسول کا بیٹا ہے. ارے جب تک زندہ رہنا حسین پہ کوئی آنچ نہ آنے پائے. عباس نے وہ سپہ سالاری دکھائی. بس آخری وقت آیا, مولا اجازت دیجئے. مولا نے اجازت دینے سے پہلے کہا اے عباس تم تو سپہ سالار ہو, تمہیں کیسے جانے دوں. کہا مولا وہ سپاہ کہا جس کا میں سالار تھا. کہا عباس بچوں کے التش کی آواز آتی ہے, ان کے لیے کچھ پانی کا بندوبست کرو. عباس نے مشکیزہ اٹھایا, پانی کی طرف رخ کیا, فرات پہ قبضہ کیا, پانی مشکیزے میں بھرا, وفا کو برقرار رکھا. پانی لے کے خیمہ کی طرف بڑھتے ہیں, لیکن ایک دشمن نے دائیں جانب سے حملہ کیا, ایک نے بائیں جانب سے حملہ کیا. عباس نے توجہ مشکیزے پہ لگائی. ایک ایسا تیر بے وفا آیا, ایسا تیر جفا کش آیا, کوئی سیدھا مشکیزے میں لگا. پیوست ہونا تھا, پانی بہ گیا, پانی کا گرنا تھا. عباس وہی رک گئے. ایک ایسا گرزا کے لگا ماتھے پہ کہ ڈگمگائے اور زین فرس سے زمین پہ آ گرے. ارے میرے مولا آپ پہ آخری سلام ہو. حسین کھڑے ہوئے, الان ان کا سر ظہری. اے عباس میری کمر ٹوٹ گئی. الا لعنت اللہ القوم الظالمین وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. بار اللہ ہماری اس بات قبول فرما. ہم گناہ گار ہیں, ہمارے گناہوں سے درگزر فرما. ہمیں اہل بیت علیہ السلام کے نقش قدم چلنے کی توفیق عطا فرما. ہمیں ان کی تعلیمات پر عمل کرنے کی توفیق عطا فرما. ہمارے امام کے ظہور میں تعجیل فرما. ہمیں ان کے اعوان و انصار میں شمار کر. ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم. ایک دفعہ سورہ فاتحہ کی تلاوت کر کے مرحوم سید مہدی رضا ابن سید علی رضا کی روح کو ایصال کرتے ہیں.
Just an announcement, there will be a majlis here on Thursday, December 2nd, with the Namaz Maghrib for the Isar Sawab of Shahnaz Begum. It will be her first birthday, so please be here on Thursday, the 2nd of December at 7:30 p.m. inshallah. We'll have Dua Kumail, and then after that there will be a majlis here at Baitul Khaim inshallah. Bismillah.
السلام علیکم یا رسول اللہ, السلام علیکم یا نبی اللہ, السلام علیکم یا حبیب اللہ, السلام علیکم یا خیر اللہ, السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ, السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ, السلام علیکم ابن رسول اللہ, السلام علیکم وعلی جدک وابیک وعلی امک واخیک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ, السلام علیکم یا غریب الغرباء, السلام علیکم یا معین الضعفاء والفقراء, السلام علیکم شمس الشموس وعنیس النفوس ای المدفون بعرض توس علی ابن موسیٰ الرضا ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ, السلام علیکم صاحب العصر والزمان, السلام علیکم امام الانس والجان, السلام علیکم یا خلیفۃ الرحمن اجل اللہ تعالی فرجک وسهل اللہ مخرجک وظہورک وجعلنا من اعوانک وانصارک ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ.